Hello and welcome to the 20 Questions Podcast with Tyler Aiken. I'm your host, Tyler Aiken, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the show. And this time I actually want to start off with a story because a few weeks ago, I got the opportunity to work for the ESPN broadcast of TBT. That means the basketball tournament, and it's a 64-team tournament held every summer with the last team standing winning $1 million. It's a ton of fun to watch, and it was super cool to be involved with it. My job was talent stats, which meant that during the games, I would hand over game notes, stats, any research I could find to the play-by-play and color commentators so that they had a little bit of extra information to work with. And the color commentator said I did such a great job helping him out that he wanted to help me out and come onto the show. And I'm so thankful for that opportunity because I'm not exaggerating. This guy's one of the best brains in all of basketball. He played college basketball for 4 years, then coached college basketball for over 30 years. And now, for the last 10 years, he's been working with ESPN as an analyst and color commentator. So he knows basketball from on the court, off the court, and in front of the camera. It's going to be a great chance to pick his brain about everything and anything, college basketball and beyond. So please get ready for 20 Questions with Seth Greenberg. Hey, Coach, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. I got to thank you for all your help for the TBT. You were an absolute stud. You actually made me look smart, which is very difficult to do. So I appreciate all your hard work. And now you're putting on a tie for me. Like, this is out of control. You loosened it up a little bit. I like that. You're like the Rodney Dangerfield. You loosen it up, you get no respect.
I'll
Kids,
loosen
look
up a
up
little
Rodney
bit.
Dangerfield. You'll laugh.
I'll be casual for you. Yeah, you said it's hard to make you look smart. I don't know about that. You've been doing this for a long time. You played, then you were a coach, and now you're broadcasting. You've seen this game from every aspect. So I guess I'll start because I'm curious. How do you see yourself? I mean, you've been broadcasting for 10 years. You coached for 30 years before that. Like, when you think of Seth Greenberg, what do you think of yourself as first?
A coach. Well, first and foremost, a father and a husband. And that's the most important coaching job that I could do is, I've got three daughters. They're grown now, but that's you first and foremost, you want to be a good parent. You want to teach your players how to be good parents and good husbands. But I look at myself as a coach. I'm a really fortunate guy. I got a chance to chase my own dreams. As a young age, that I knew I wanted to coach. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do. I attended the five-star basketball camp way back in the day, run by a guy named Howie Garfinkel, Will Klein. It was kind of the grassroots basketball before grassroots basketball took off, but it was a teaching camp. And whether it's John Calipari or UB Brown or Coach Knight or you name someone that's had success, Brendan Malone. If you look at it right now, it was a birthplace of coaches, and I had a chance to be a camper there, and then obviously be a coach there. And that camp built a bridge for me to chase my dream, and that was to coach. So I'll always look at myself as a coach. I'm a lucky guy. I get a chance to use my experiences to talk about the game I love and never lose a game.
Yeah, you never get to lose. You're always on the winning side. You weren't always on the winning side as a player. I do want to ask a little bit about your playing career. I always try to do my research before I interview people, and there wasn't too much information about your playing career out there. I did find that you were a pretty hard-nosed defender. You always talk about no marshmallow, so that makes a lot of sense. If my sources are correct, you had almost as many fouls in your college career as you had points. So other than defending hard and
But
anything like that.
assists. That was my game. I played for a guy named Alabama who was Bob Knight's assistant at Army, who was also UB Brown's high school coach, one of the most famous coaches in college basketball, one of the architects of volume man defense. And everything we did was on the defensive end. My job was real simple: advance the basketball and get the ball to the post. And that's what I did. I wasn't a big scorer. I was aggressive. I could advance the ball. I could feed the post. I could bring our team together and get everyone on the same page. But I'll tell you a funny story is we're playing against my brother's team. My brother played at American University. He was a great player and a great scorer. Was a great player in high school. But he went to Washington State, played for George Raveling, then transferred back to American. And we're playing American University at Fairleigh Dickinson, better known as Harvard on Hackensack. And they go zone. I come in the game, they go zone. And that zone is just spread out. And, I get the ball reversed, I get it back. I'm trying to get the ball inside, can't get it inside. It's flattened out. I shoot it, I miss. Come down next possession. It's a half court possession. We get it reversed. We try to get to the short corner. Gets kicked back to me. All right, wide open. Boom, shoot it. I miss. Get the next possession. Coach calls timeout. Calls timeout. He goes, what the hell are you doing? I said, what do you mean? What am I doing? He said, like, why are you shooting that shot? I said, I'm wide open. And his answer was, there was a reason you were wide open. So, I mean, I played for a tough guy, but I learned a lot. And the one thing playing for Coach LaBabo, and he always used to say this even when he recruited me, is that a lot of things that I learned from him that I do with my own teams. And he was right. We were built on the defensive end. We were built on, not getting split, forcing contested shots, limiting people to one shots, being physical. And I went to college and I picked Fairleigh Dickinson University because I almost went to Penn State. And I picked Fairleigh Dickinson because of the coach, because my best class was our practices. That was my lab. So I would leave practice and take notes on what we learned, how we learned it, how things were taught. We'd have a clinic every year. I demonstrated for Mike Krzyzewski, who I ended up coaching against, obviously Coach Knight, Richie Adubato, Mike Fratello, UB Brown, who would come in and speak at the clinic, said, when I was not demonstrating, I was taking notes off the clinics, which I still have some of those notes, which is crazy. So I always knew what I wanted to do. I don't look at myself as a broadcaster. I look at myself as a coach that talks ball and is fortunate enough to have a platform such as ESPN, which is incredible. I'm really, really fortunate and appreciative of the opportunity ESPN has given me, the platform they've given me, the people I work with. I work with the best people in the world. I'm part of the best team I've ever been part of because everyone in the building is pulling in the same direction to help you have a good show. And our job is just to talk ball.
That's the easy part, as a lot of people say. So you said you were a coach first. You had a very long coaching career, and I don't want to pump up your ego too much, but a lot of great highlights there. 2-time ACC Coach of the Year, a really nice win over #1 North Carolina, a few appearances in the NCAA tournament. I'm curious as to what your best memory from all of your years in coaching is.
My coolest memory is during COVID when I had a Zoom call with about 70 of my former players on.
Oh,
And
wow.
we just talked. It's funny, from my first recruit at Columbia University, Darren Burnett, to my last recruit at Virginia Tech. And of course, they had great stories about me. And all like saying, oh, you guys down the road, you got, he was soft by that. But that was one of the coolest things I've ever done. And, our whole concept behind the conversations was basically to be results-based conversations. And, our result at the end of the thing was, if everyone every day or every week could do something for someone else, how much better would this world be? Whether it's pick up the phone and call someone and say thank you, whether it's volunteering your time to people who need help, whether it's helping raise money for a cause or whatever it is, to try to do something for someone else to impact someone else's life. And if you think about it, if everyone had a mindset of trying to help someone else, our world wouldn't be in the mess it's probably in right now. But so that's one of the great things. I mean, the wins are great. I mean, winning at Allen Fieldhouse or winning at Cameron or winning at the Dean Dome, those things are great. But it's the relationships that are probably more important to me now, for sure. Maybe not then, but now the relationships I have with those guys and seeing them as husbands and fathers and seeing them impact society in a positive way. That's to me the coolest thing about coaching, the most important thing about coaching, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think honestly, my favorite coaches were always the ones who took it bigger than basketball. It wasn't just the sport. It was, who are you as a person? How can I help you become better? And I think it's probably a testament to why you were in the game for so long. You did mention that ESPN, it's the best people you've ever worked with. Everyone's trying to help each other. You've been doing this for 10 years now, but I kind of want to go back to the start of that because you've been coaching for 30 years. But before that, a lot of people might not know you studied broadcast journalism in college. So I'm curious, did that help you at all when you were making that transition, or were you still super scared and nervous kind of transitioning to where you had to speak on the game publicly?
When you coach, you have a radio show, you have a TV show, you have those things. But to be honest with you, the first time, you're sitting there and you're sitting in the Sports Center studio or you're sitting, on set, for a Big Monday or Super Tuesday. It's different. I mean, like people understand, like a halftime is 6 minutes. It's 2 3 minute segments. So you got to be a little more concise. You can't just ramble on. And you're working with other people, so you've got to listen and hear. And you don't really address the camera. You address the person you're talking to, which is just a philosophy of ESPN. I was confident in my knowledge. I was confident in my research. I prepare every single day. Like right now, I've got a book in front of me right now. I'm working 3 hours a day right now. I'm breaking down, hundreds of teams. So, I mean, I was confident in my preparation, but my broadcast journalism major came into play doing my radio show in college, doing my TV show. Maybe just in my storytelling. But I started my broadcasting career a little earlier than I expected to. But to me, it's the people that I work with that made it easy. When you're working with John Saunders, and when you're working with Reese Davis, and when you're working with Kevin Nagande, and you're working with the people I have an opportunity, Kevin Connors, and you're working with the people that I've had an opportunity to work with, they bring out the best in you. They know what question to ask. They know what you're thinking because you're having a conversation when ball games are going on. And then it's just talking ball. I mean, like whether I was working with ESPN or not, I'd be doing the same thing I'm doing. I'd be talking ball, and my mindset is really I'm sitting in a bar talking to my boys, and that's what I try to do on television.
So you love to talk ball, even when you're with the boys or on camera. You like to talk ball. So let's do a little bit of that. Over the last 40 years, you've gotten to see the game develop a little bit. What do you think about how basketball has changed and where it's going? Do you like the current kind of style of play that you're seeing played college, pro, anywhere? Do you like where basketball is right now?
Our game's become a very European game with floor gamers all over the floor, with spacing, the use of the 3-point shot. Obviously, has been important in terms of flow and transition, flowing right into what you're doing. If you look at it, our games become more like that. Although we don't execute like the European teams. If you look at professional European basketball, they're not as much ball screen dominant in terms of two-man game. It's more ball screen dominant in terms of moving 5 people in relation to the ball. Obviously, a lot more pick and pop, short rolls, bigs down, passing it better, more action off the ball screen, away from the ball, and then reading all 5 defenders. Yeah, I mean, I think that the NBA at times, to me, is a hard watch. It is. Yet the good teams are so much fun to watch. I always say NBA guys take bad shots and make them. College guys take good shots and miss them. I mean, NBA, the players are just so good. They're just so good, and they make tough plays. They're the best players in the world. But I love our college game, and I think our college game is emerging. I think obviously the NBA has a great impact on us. So does European basketball. Like threes, layups, free throws. I mean, you hear everyone talk about the analytics. I don't think the middle game is dead. I think if you can get to a good spot and that's your shot, you can make a shot. That's a good shot. I mean, a bad shooter shooting a 3 is not as good as a good player getting to 15 feet, knocking down a jumper. It all depends on who you are. Steph Curry's impacted the game. There's no doubt about in terms of where people are shooting from. Shots that maybe guys wouldn't even think of shooting, they're shooting now. But I think our game's in a good place. I think there's a good flow to our game. I think our game is getting more skilled. I think our game is becoming a 12-month sport. Guys are working at it in a different way. The thing that bothers me is that everyone's in a rush. Everyone's in a rush to get to the league. Everyone thinks that every young, good player thinks it's a rite of passage to get the NBA. And there's an unrealistic expectation that goes along with that. And there's also a sense of failure if you don't make it, where you could have an incredible college career, meet incredible people, build bridges with alumni that can open up doors to the rest of your life. I mean, it's not a rite of passage. I don't care if you're a McDonald's All-American. All right. Probably a third of the McDonald's All-Americans don't last 2 years in the NBA. I don't care if you're a one and done. It's not getting to the league. It's staying in the league. It bothers me that guys are more concerned with where they're going than having both feet in place where they are and winning. The transfer portal and NIL, It's not going backwards. I think we're going to have contracts in college basketball. I think you're going to see guys like too that'll control the portal. NIL is not NIL; it's pay for play. It's just the way it is. I mean, you can say what you want, but 90% of NIL with the collectives is pay for play. If you want to have NIL, have NIL. If you want to have pay for play, have pay for play. That's why I think there's going to be contracts. But don't call pay for play NIL because it's not.
So then I guess how would you want players to be compensated, or do you think you said there's no going back? Is that your ideal world though, where there's no NIL, no contracts, nothing, or do you
No,
think?
I think real NIL is important. I mean, I think that'd be great. I mean, you should own your name, image like this. No, I think where we're going is we're going to end up 3 years, 4 years, 3 years probably from now with a new model for the NCAA. Might not be the NCAA, it might be the Power Five conference, plus the non-football playing schools that play at the elite level that will conduct their business that way. I think we'll end up with contracts. I'm not sure if there'll be a salary cap. I don't know how that works. So you would have to have some type of collective bargaining. But I think we'll have 2-year contracts, and but there'll be stipulations on both sides. And some of the stipulations I would put is an academic stipulation, because here's the deal: we've devalued education. You know, everyone thinks they're going to be a pro. Well, not everyone's going to be a pro. Almost no one's going to be a pro, and yet we've devalued education. We've got to put education back into the equation. So even if you have contracts, you got to have education. You got to make sure these young people are moving in the right direction. That's why this overtime stuff and even the G League night, all that stuff sounds great until it's 5 years later and you realize you're not a pro. Then where do you go back to? See, like these guys that go to college, they always have somewhere to go back to. And if you have an academic stipulations in the contract, then all of a sudden, you know, at the end of those 2 years, say you put your name in, your career's over at 27, you go back to your university, because all universities are guaranteeing scholarships post, if you leave early. And now you have a support system and you're part of something and you can transition to the next stage of your life. If you do the overtime thing and you don't make it, who knows how long that's going to be around? And even if it is around, do they have the mechanisms in place to really be the support system that these young people need to be able to be productive the rest of their lives? So I do think we're going to have 5 conferences. I think the 5th conference is going to be a non-football playing group that's going to be part of the NCAA. It's not even called the NCAA consortium, which will have a new set of rules. And then we'll have an NCAA tournament, just the way it is, except it won't be guaranteed. I don't think there's going to be automatic qualifiers for everyone, because you're going to earn your way in to the NCAA. Maybe you're going to have, of those one bid leagues, you're going to have literally a top 16 or 32. You can have a tournament itself, and then the final 4 of that group will now immerse themselves into the NCAA tournament. I think that's something that could happen.
It's crazy how much basketball is going to change over the next decade or two. And you mentioned conferences, maybe a non-football conference. Right now we're seeing the SEC is grabbing a bunch of schools for football. The Pac-12 might not even exist in a few years. Do you think that's going to influence basketball at all? Or do you think at some point there's going to be a complete separation from basketball and football conferences?
No, I don't think there'll ever be a complete separation for our sport, because you still have the Gonzagas of the world. You still have the Big Easts of the world. You still have the St. Mary's of the world. You still have, the schools that are playing basketball at a very highest level, competing for national championships that, just don't finance football. Villanova, an example. Then I could see a scenario where the ACC takes some non-football playing schools, and if I'm the ACC, would I try to look at Villanova and Georgetown, so I'd get the New York market and the Maryland market. If I go after Connecticut, say, well, Philadelphia market and DC market. But I look at Connecticut, say, I can grab the New York market, because they have as much of a New York market as Syracuse, Connecticut. I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, and grow our conference, and then, or will the Big East then try to grab Gonzaga and some others, and have an East and a West Coast, and kind of a new branding of the conference. I think the Pac-10 Pac-12 survives, or the Big 12 survives. I think they eventually are going to consolidate somehow, some way. So you can have those guys. You're going to be ACC. You're going to have the SEC. You're going to have the Big Ten, and then you're going to have your non-football playing schools. But I do think some football conferences will end up grabbing non-football playing schools and saying, "All right, we're going to give you 7% of the cut." Because 7% of the cut is a lot more money than they're making without that football money.
It's going to be interesting to watch how that develops. I mean, it seems like a lot of schools are making decisions based on football, which probably isn't the best for basketball. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm glad you brought up Villanova because that kind of brings up a debate I've had with some people I know. It brings up a conversation I've heard happen, which is the term blue bloods in basketball. I feel like there was a set group of people, and I've had some people say Villanova has entered that conversation. I've heard people say that UCLA isn't a big or blue blood anymore because they haven't been the best over the last few decades as they were back in the 60s and 70s. So which schools do you think are blue bloods when it comes to basketball? Like, who makes the list?
Well, Villanova's a blue blood now, and they've won 2 national championships, the last 5 or 6 years, and they've been to obviously 3 Final Fours, I think, in the last 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, 5 or 6. I always mess up with the COVID year because I really don't count that as much.
Mm-hmm.
But look, I think that if you look at the history of the game, because I mean that's where it all started. UCLA's a blue blood, Indiana's a blue blood. You're talking about the history of the game. Kentucky's a blue blood, Kansas is a blue blood. I mean, North Carolina's a blue blood, but then you have the new bloods, as Leonard Hamilton calls them, and those are programs that are emerging. Is Gonzaga a new blood? Is Villanova a new blood? Well, Villanova went to championships before, also. We forget about that Rolly Massimino championship. So I think that it's an emerging, but I think we have a group of schools that have played their way in, and college basketball's changed because you think about it, 15 years ago even, the SEC was Kentucky and, well, what's happened is these schools, because of the money they've generated, they are investing in facilities, they're investing in coaches, they're investing in support services. The television contracts, whether it's the SEC network, whether it's, the Big Ten network, there's greater exposure. So it's giving more schools opportunities to build, not have a basketball team, but have a basketball program. And you can't get better until you have a basketball program. Like when I was at Virginia Tech, that was the biggest thing we thought when we first went there. They had basketball teams. And I was trying to build a basketball program, built on how, not only what you do, but how you do it. And to have a level playing field. Obviously, we never got to the point where we were Duke, North Carolina, but I really believe we built that foundation in our move to the ACC that has enabled them to sustain some success. So, Villanova is definitely a blue blood, but I do think we have emerging new bloods that have become really impactful when it comes to the college basketball.
As a Syracuse fan, I wish Syracuse could have made that conversation, but I feel like that ship might have sailed. We'll see. It's been interesting to watch the team over the last few years.
I think the transition to the ACC, but they've been to Final Fours, they've been to Elite Eights. You're going to lose games. The day of the scheduling yourself to 25 wins and winning 15 games in non-conference, like back in the day, is different. The travel in the ACC is different. There are more schools that they're competing against in recruiting. There are more facilities like they have that make it harder competition. There are more good schools in that Northeastern corridor now than there were in the past. That's just the way it is. So, and then geographic footprint is a little tough in the ACC as opposed to the Big East. That's just, again, Clemson, whether it's Clemson, Florida State, or North Carolina, Duke, Wake Forest. I mean, it's just a different. It's a different mindset. But they've had incredible success. I mean, everyone bitches and moans about coach, and all he does is every time they do it, he says, "Okay, all right, we'll take this team. We'll go to the Final Four. We'll take this team. We'll go to the Elite Eight." So it's hard to win. Everyone thinks winning's easy. It's really, really hard. It's the other guy's got 13 guys on scholarship. The other guy's got a good coach. The other guy's got a university that's invested in that program. The other guy's got players that expect to win. Winning's hard. really hard.
It certainly is. It's a very competitive sport right now. And before we move off the Syracuse topic, I do have to ask one more question about Syracuse because I go to Syracuse. I have a lot of people I know around here, born and raised in Syracuse. And there seems to be this notion that yourself and another bald ESPN broadcaster, Jay Billis, are anti-Syracuse, got some anti-Syracuse bias. Did you even know that feeling existed among Syracuse fans? And how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, my former assistant's an assistant coach to Coach Boeheim in Asian archery. My daughter's a law school grad at Syracuse. Tell them they have good company because the Duke fans think I'm anti-Duke. The Carolina fans think I'm anti-Carolina. The Maryland fans think I'm anti-Maryland. It's real simple. I just tell the truth. In fact, no one's been a bigger supporter of Jim Boeheim than probably I have. Is that because I said that Buddy needed to be suspended the game in the ACC tournament? Is that where that came from?
I don't know, but he totally should have been suspended. He sucker punched a guy in the chest. So
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think I've like one thing is, I think the coaches believe I'm fair. Like I have no agenda. I mean, I have zero agenda. Like I tell people all the time, John Calipari is one of my dearest friends. I'm doing a Kentucky South Carolina game in the studio. Kentucky was absolutely awful. Got absolutely run. And I basically said, look, I mean, if they're going to continue to act and play like this and not trust each other, not share the ball, not compete hard, I said, you know what? It's an embarrassment to the history of Kentucky basketball. Well, the Kentucky fans lost their minds. We go that Saturday, that's Monday, that Saturday, we're at Kentucky for a Kentucky-Florida college game day game. John Calipari asked me to come in and speak to his team. And basically, I told him the truth. And when he introduced me, he said one thing about Coach Greenberg is, you know what? He doesn't have an agenda. The reason he said what he said is because he told the truth. We weren't going to be very good if we were going to continue to play that way. So, I don't really worry about that kind of stuff. I spent a lot of time in the last 3 years up in Syracuse, a couple of years ago when my daughter was in law school there. I always love to, go up there and call a game. I got great respect for the program, but if someone doesn't play well, they don't play well. What am I supposed to say? Oh boy, they're really playing well right now. When they play well, whomever it is. But if someone's pitching it all over the place, you can't make a shot and not competing the way you need to compete. My job is to look at the game through a prism of a coach and say what I would say to my team. And that's what I do.
yeah, I think if everybody thinks that you're biased against their team, then I feel like that's probably a pretty good sign that you're being pretty fair and objective. I do want to move a little bit away from TBT, or move away from college and talk about TBT, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's the basketball tournament. $1 million goes to the winning team. It's a 64 team bracket. And you've been working with this tournament for the past few years, and it's really grown into a place where there have been in the last few years some guys who have been getting shots to get back to the NBA or really push forward their careers because of how they played in TBT. So where do you see TBT going in the future? It's really grown over the last 7 years, and who knows where it's going next.
Yeah, next year it's 10th year, which is going to be really exciting. Look, it's a great stage for guys that are playing in Europe to come back and play in front of their family and friends, play on ESPN, compete for $1 million. It's a great stage for teams with a cause to gain exposure for their cause, help raise money, impact other people's lives, and have that shared experience. And then it's a great stage for alumni teams to give guys a chance to put that uniform on one more time, to, give that chance to guys to come back to campus, do training camp, tell stories. I know the Syracuse team, they had dinner with Coach Boeheim and Julie, and that as a coach, those are the coolest times. So it's a great vehicle, and we need to make our sport a 12-month sport. And I think it's great. Now, I do think that college basketball should have summer jamborees. I think the first 2 weeks of August, schools should be able to create pods of four. Pods of four, you play 2 games, one game on a Friday or a Sunday or a Thursday and a Saturday. Winners plays winners, losers play losers. You can sell tickets to it, raise money, give money to charity. You can have an NIL component where you bring an outside group in who produces the game, and you do a clinic for maybe a disadvantaged area and has a sponsor. There's so many different things. Plus, it's a reward. Players, they're allowed to practice in the summer now. It's kind of a reward at the end of it. Get something on film for the coaches. It gives guys something to look forward to. It's supposed to beat each other up for those 6-8 weeks. So I think that would be a great compliment to the TBT. But the TBT is here to say it's incredible. I mean, I absolutely love it. No marshmallows need apply. You don't play hard, you're not winning. If you don't play together, you're not winning. There are so many incredible stories, and it is hard to win those 6 games.
It's really hard. I mean, Syracuse had a great team for several years and just couldn't get past the finish line. And then sometimes you see a little bit of magic coming together. BCU this year, just their second year in the tournament, and they win it. So really,
they were the
can
best
happen.
team. They were the best team, top to bottom. They played the best basketball. They played the hardest. They were most consistent defensively. They shared the ball. They played without ego. They could play fast. They could play slow. Massenberg was good. Perkins was good. Guys came off the bench and made big plays. Jeremy Harris come off the bench when they get 15. So they were the best team all through it. Then you got those crazy teams like the Gutter Cat group. Which is such a fun group. And Kyle Hines and his guys. The Friday Beers guys, which were hilarious too. So there were so many good things that went along with TBT this year, and I think it's here to stay. And I think it's a if you talk about summer league TBT, and then if we can get these summer jamborees for the college teams, we could have a great summer calendar of hoops.
I really like the summer jamborees idea because some of these colleges, they go overseas and they play like some international teams, which I don't think is bad at all. But I think being matched up against colleges that you might actually play during the year might kind of give players a better idea of the competition they're getting. I mean, they'd still probably be on minutes restrictions, but I do think that would be really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I still think you should do international trips every 4 years if you'd like, if you can afford it. And the years you're not, so you can go overseas and play games. Why shouldn't you go play games in your own country? And why is it a limit only once every 4 years? Why does it have to be that?
Yeah, that doesn't really make sense. Hopefully we can kind of fill up that summer calendar a little bit more, because certainly as a fan, that's what you want to see. Before I let you go, I do have a few quick hitters. We're still going to talk basketball, and I want to hear your opinions on some of the big questions in college basketball. So first up, who do you think's winning the championship next year, if you had to make a prediction?
Yeah, it's too early. I wouldn't even. I'll give you a little. All right, I've got a notebook that's filled up like this already. Well, can't see it of notes, but I haven't dug into. Basically, I've done rosters and key things for each team. I mean, look, Houston could be an outside team. I'll give you a couple of long shots. Texas could be a long shot team. They've really improved themselves in their backcourt and their toughness. Obviously, Carolina returns Baycott and Love and Davis and Leakey, but Manick's going to be hard to replace. Kentucky looked pretty good in their international tournament. Arkansas could be a sleeper. There's no doubt about it. Duke is really talented, but very young. But they got Jeremy Roach back, which I think is going to be really good. Really good for them. I'm looking. I actually have some stuff that I've kind of messed around with a little bit. A lot of people think Creighton is kind of, if they can stay healthy. Kalkbrenner is a big guy that can really defend. I had a chance to watch him play when we were in Omaha, and I was really, really impressed with Alexander. Nemhard comes back healthy, and then the kid they got from Dakotas, who can really, really shoot it, is really good. So I just think there's a lot of good teams. The interesting thing about this year is it's the year of the big. Trace Jackson Davis is back, and Oscar's back, and Hunter Dickinson's back. And if you go throughout, Armando Baycott's back. You go through college basketball, all these bigs came back to school. You've got some really, Drew Timmy's back. I mean, I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. The returning players, I think, are going to have a greater impact on college basketball this year than the freshmen.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and it certainly fits with your philosophy about not rushing to the NBA. Those guys may be a little bit more mature, can help their teams out a little bit more. It would be good to see a newer team win this year. I definitely think, though.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. The next big question in college basketball: who do you think? And obviously, this is a pretty tough question to answer, but when you look back into the history of college basketball, do you think who's the top player out of all that group?
Oh man, can't even touch that. I mean, there was a Walton, is it Kareem? Is it? I mean, there's so many great players in the history of the game, of our game. I mean, if you think about it, it would hard. They changed the rules for Kareem.
That's
Did they
true.
change the rules for anyone else?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So I mean,
It's
I
a
think
pretty
that
fair
could be.
answer.
Yeah. So I mean, but we've had so many great. I mean, Jordan, but Jordan wasn't Jordan that he was. He wasn't Jordan in the NBA that he was in college. I mean, he was great, but he was, Patrick Ewing never won a championship. I mean, we've had so many good players in the history of college basketball. It's been phenomenal, really.
I'm going to ask you one more kind of unfair question because these are so hard to answer. And maybe I'll switch it up. I won't ask you who's the best college coach of all time, but maybe a college coach that you think is underappreciated. That might be a little bit easier to answer.
All college coaches are unappreciated because I don't think people understand how hard it is. I would actually say probably one of the most unappreciated coaches, the guy at your place. Jim Boeheim is probably the best game coach in college basketball in terms of seeing the game in slow motion and making adjustments. And everyone likes, to kind of hit on him, but he is he's probably one of the more underappreciated coaches, except for the people that have to coach against him. Because the people that have to coach against him, that's not, he's not fun to coach against. Bob Huggins would be in it. Bob Huggins would be in that category as well. Scott Drew would be in that category as well right now. You think about what Scott's been able to do. It's been pretty spectacular. So those are just off the top of my head.
I mean, it's certainly a harder job than people will talk about. I mean, the amount of people you see that'll say absolutely anything. Oh, you should do this. You should do that. You're not doing it. They're getting paid to do it.
If you're not in practice every day, you just don't get it. If you're in practice every day, you understand what the day to day. First, you have no idea understanding your team. A coach is in practice every day, and then watching the video practice and sees things that you don't see. You see one play. Oh man, he needs to play more. And then you don't see all the stuff that happens off the court. Kid might have a problem with a girlfriend. His mom might be in a situation. His dad might be in a situation. He could have something going on, in his family that has impacted him. He could walk into a class and feel uncomfortable and have anxiety. I mean, the number of things that go on in the course of the day of a coach that have nothing to do with basketball, but have to do with life, is far greater than what happens that has to do with basketball. And that's the thing that people don't understand. I mean, anxiety is a real thing. Obviously, mental health is a real thing today. It's even greater than it was, 10 years ago. But I mean, I've had guys walk into class and just feel like they were out of place and have panic attacks. Now, no one said, "Wait a second, how do you deal with that?" There's no basically cliff notes for that. I mean, I had a situation where I was at Virginia Tech. We had a shooting on our campus. How do you deal with that? There's so many things that happen personally and collectively: team chemistry, jealousy, unrealistic expectation. There are so many things that transpired during the course of a week that have nothing to do with basketball. I have this saying: people don't know what they don't know. They really don't, because you can cover the sport all you want, but until you lived it and lived it through their lives, your players' lives, and their families' lives, and the pressures, it's a lot different. Coaching is the easiest part of it.
Bigger than basketball. I think that's kind of been the big theme that you've gotten across today. Basketball is important, but it's everything around it, the people inside it, and the people kind of growing as they go along and growing under your leadership. I think that's probably the most important part. That's all the questions I have for you, Coach, today. But thank you so much for coming on to the show. I really appreciate it.
Okay, my pleasure. And again, thank you so much. But you got a good little studio set up there. I mean, look, the bright red wall with big Syracuse, whatever. That's probably 100 years of Syracuse basketball or something. I mean, you got the white shirt. It kind of pops with the background. You come a long way since just telling me what the hell's going on in the game. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thanks, Coach. Thank you again to Seth for coming on to the show. I mean, just speaking for myself, I learned more in the last half hour about basketball than I'd learned in my whole life up until today, which just goes to show how much he knows about the game. He told a lot of great stories, and I just had so much fun talking to him. To make sure you don't miss more great episodes and interviews like this, please make sure you're following us on all of our social media accounts. You can subscribe to our YouTube page by hitting that subscribe button right below the screen, and you can also follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. All of those links are down in the description, and they are shown on the page right next to me. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the 20 Questions Podcast with Tyler Aiken.